What was going on up here?
Varied from activity to activity.
Good. So we can notice that you guys picked up that they're all different. I mean, everybody here is a teacher, college degree. You guys are smart people, but there's a wide range going on up here, and so that's something that's really important for your students to realize too, is just the community that's there, the wide range that they have. So you could easily adjust this, make it more middle school friendly, and do something like that, like maybe at the beginning of the year in your classroom, just so they can get to know each other a little bit, and start to realize that everybody's got some strengths, everybody's got some things that they would prefer to be better at, and it's just a nice way to just start off and build a little community.
Well, that was cool too. Like initially, I think somebody was there in the middle, but then everybody went on that side, and then you said, "Oh, so you're an expert." Like you thought that you were in the middle, but then when everybody went over there, it's like all of a sudden you're an expert, even though you didn't put yourself way over here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah. So anyway, cool way to maybe start things off and just build a little community in your classroom. This is a quote that I always liked: "A friend is a person before whom I may think aloud." And so we want to make a comfortable environment where kids can feel like that they're in a place where they can talk amongst their, be academically, be able to challenge themselves academically, be able to really put themselves out there a little bit. And then just going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I'm sure you guys have all seen this at some point, is that the next thing up from survival is that feeling of belonging. If students don't feel like they belong to a classroom, the buy-in's not going to be there, they're not going to really care as much about what's going on in that classroom. So we want to make sure that we're trying to help them belong to a group, belong to a community, that they feel like they're part of that classroom. Because really, beyond survival, that's the next most important thing. And this is some teachers near where I live in Virginia put these definitions together of classroom community. An environment where students feel safe, secure, and comfortable to learn. Participation and contribution are expected from every single student, and students can see their role and importance in the classroom. And so we want to make sure that we're having expectations that everybody's going to be involved, that we're expecting that students can see their role, and that when they come to the classroom, it's a safe place. Just like in the Gospel for Teens, that was a safe place for them to come. That was a place where they can feel supported. And so here are just just a list of activities that foster community. Having class meetings, taking 10 minutes every Monday, and just spending some time, or every other Monday, and just having a class meeting. Hey, how are things going? What went on this weekend? What's going well? What's not? And having those just little class meetings with the kids. Attendance questions at the beginning of class, and I'll show you an example of one of those in a second. Flexible grouping. That's we'll come back to that a little bit later, but the idea that we're not just putting kids in one type of group and using that group throughout the year. And so if we do a lot of groupings in the classroom, it's not just based on readiness, what we call readiness, where kids are always in a low group or high group. They pick up on that pretty quickly, is that we're saying, you guys all have different aspects of your learning that we're really concerned with. And so sometimes you guys are going to be together based on interest. Sometimes you guys are going to be together based on readiness levels. Sometimes it's going to be mixed readiness levels. Sometimes it's going to put a high kid with a struggling kid, and hope that there's some cooperative learning that takes place there. Base groups in the classroom, just starting class off with base groups, and I actually use these with my college kids. They're in content. I teach a general methods course, and so they're in their content groups, and that's where they start class. And they always get up and we move around, but they tend to work on things together. They study together. It becomes sort of a community within the classroom because they value each other within those small base groups. Having high expectations for kids obviously is an important one. The modeling that we do, the way we treat kids, so going back again to Gospel for Teens, the way she was treating those kids, the positive way that she interacted with them, that's something we can model, because a lot of times kids don't see that. And if we don't give them a model for that, they're not going to know what's expected. Socratic discussions, doing student surveys maybe at the beginning of the year, passing out interest surveys, finding out what kids are interested in. The lineup we just did, a jigsaw activity, which we're actually going to do later, which is another kind of way of flexible grouping. A matrix activity, also how to do, I'll have a couple examples of that too, but it's a way for students to connect and find similarities with each other. And then authentic assessments, things that will really push kids and give them a real-world focus in the classroom. Get them to think like mathematicians, think like scientists. If we can let them do that, then they're going to feel more respected in the classroom and there'll be more community there. So this is some examples of attendance questions, and this is from a an article in Educational Leadership a few years ago. This is what this teacher does. The attendance question, okay, people, this is a big one today. Definitive answer, Coke or Pepsi. On another day, she begins, okay, folks, we've just been given a sampler box of Russell Stover candy, but the map is missing. What have you chosen? And what do you not like in there? It's not something that you necessarily do every single day, but if you use like entrance questions or things like that consistently in your classroom, mixing in something where everybody starts the day getting an answer right. You start the day knowing that I can get this one right, and you tend to go into class with a more positive feeling than you would by necessarily thinking, okay, here we go again. It's math. I'm really bad at math. And so the kids all contribute. Everybody can offer an answer. So even your kids who might not like to speak because they're afraid that they don't know the answers to things, they're going to be right here. And so you can get more involvement. And again, it wouldn't be an everyday thing, but just a way to kind of help build that community and get kids started. Another thing, and this is what I actually do this with my college students, is we do design your own postcards at the beginning of the year. And what they do is they cut out pictures or draw on one side of the postcard, and then on the back they just kind of describe what each of the pictures represents about themselves. And so this would be like an example of what it would look like. But it's actually really, really cool because they end up connecting with each other a lot. When they share their pictures or what's going on, it's like, oh, you're involved with that too. Last semester I had like 3 kids whose mothers had all been recently diagnosed with breast cancer. And so it was a really big like connector moment for those kids to know that they weren't alone with what they were going through in that class. And so it can help build community from that aspect too. Graphing yourselves. So you can, it's sort of similar to Line It Up, have a bunch of things and kids can kind of graph how they feel. And I've seen teachers put these up in the classroom. So the kids will graph themselves and it'll be on display. And then you can go back and revisit it later in the year and see if kids are feeling better about certain aspects of their learning as well. And so this is just an example of what one student did. This is the howdy do thing. So you get 2 signatures per square before time is called. And you can't sign but twice on any person's grid. And so what you're trying to do is just find out different things about what people in your class are involved with or interested in. So you kind of spend some time walking around the class and getting signatures on these. And here's just a smaller example of one. Okay, so to kind of tie together the classroom community thing, I wanted to give you guys maybe, 5 to 10 minutes, something like that, to talk with the people around you and maybe jot down some ideas in your graphic organizer. And I'll show you that again. Of just some ways that you feel like classroom community, or you can build classroom community. So start over here. And you can put down ideas and how's that going to impact the students, the teachers, and the schools maybe. And then actions to implement. Like, is there anything that you feel like you'd have to go above and beyond to actually be able to implement this? Anything you'd have to prepare in advance for? All right, so think about some of the things we just talked about, the video we watched, and try to jot down a few ideas for classroom community. Yeah. No, I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
And I heard you guys too talking about the different kind of learning styles thing too. And there's a school the last couple of years was working with in Houston, and do you guys have Read 180 here? Some schools do, some schools don't. One of the Read 180 teachers is really, really great. She had the kids put together these, they were like cut out almost like gingerbread figures of themselves, and they had different things that they were supposed to paste on their figure based on what their learning styles were. And so like for one of them, if they were interpersonal, then they had a little iPhone that would like go on their hand, and then like she had some other stuff that put a red hat on if you're this, or put a blue shirt on if you're this. And she put them all on the bulletin board in the back, and so everybody had their own little figurine in the back, which is pretty cool too. Yeah.
Did she have them take a survey to figure that out, or did she just have them reflect?
I think she had them reflect, and there's a lot of stuff with learning styles, that's come out relatively recently, just about like how much of a benefit it has for student achievement. And the biggest thing with learning styles is that if you can help students just get to know themselves and what they enjoy and the way they like to access information, the way they like to think about stuff, that's great. I don't think we should make any high stakes decision based on kids, or based on like learning preferences or anything like that. But if they're going to get to know themselves and get to know each other that way, then great. And it should be more than just I am creative. You're obviously more than just creative, and I think that's the important thing too. Is when we say you're this, then kids start to see themselves, and we want to see themselves as a wide array of things.